grown up on bikes my whole life, but I refused to ride my new bike without getting my license and doing everything right. I started out just like any other day. It was a good day. I was going for a ride. My wife was behind me on her bike, and we had a friend with us, and trying to do the speed limit, just enjoy the day, and just couldn't maintain a corner. It was a pretty dangerous corner, and it was pretty much a head-on collision, and the leg was severed pretty instantly.
And I walked up and I immediately noted that his leg was severed. And it was not something that was going to be fixable.
I looked at it, it's kind of hard to believe at that point. You're in shock and your leg's separated.
All the pressure in the world was not going to stop the bleeding, and so I looked immediately. I started to grab my belt. I had no belt on.
First thing I thought of was call 911. And the second thing was, I got to get my belt off. I got to put it on my leg.
And I pulled his belt off of him and wrapped it around the trauma area, about 4 or 5 inches up from the trauma, and then started twisting it as hard as I could.
Somebody had gone to get a stick from the ditch to try to tighten the belt, and when I got up there and saw how wide the belt was, I thought, that's never going to work. We're not going to get enough pressure on it with an old rotten stick. So I said, I got something, and so I ran back to my truck and got a ratchet strap.
And I said, that'd be fantastic, a ratchet strap, anything smaller that would be able to get a tighter turn on it.
Got my pocket knife out, and we got it about the right length, and he tied a double square knot in it.
We had to happen to have found a screwdriver that happened in the middle of the road.
And he stuck it in there, and he just kept tightening, and I would hold, and he'd tighten, and I'd hold. And
I saw that the blood had stopped at that point, and then it was just a matter of waiting for the ambulance.
Mr. Jones had, without a doubt, one of the worst leg injuries I've ever seen. The comforting thing to see was, as we walked up, the most bizarre thing I think I've ever seen was he had a tree branch and a belt around his leg and a makeshift tourniquet. Those few minutes that belt was put on his leg, I've never seen anything in my life like it. When we got to the ER, even the ER physicians thought it was just the neatest thing they'd ever seen. But absolutely, without a doubt, this man was saved by the bystander.
The average human holds about 5 liters of blood. And that doesn't sound like a whole lot until you start seeing it on the ground. If you lose more than 2 liters of blood and do not replace it, you will die. 40% of your blood volume loss acutely will lead to your death.
It's something I think that's kind of become the evolution of CPR. When CPR first came about, we realized how simple it was that we could train people to do these life-saving maneuvers in the field. We could train a layperson to do CPR, and this is something, if not as easy, simpler and easier to do to stop the bleeding.
We'd like to get all the public trained on how to do this. They did a lot of discovery during our last war in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it used to be that tourniquets were forbidden because, it was dangerous. Well, done correctly, tourniquets are very life-saving.
The Stop the Bleed campaign teaches not just specifically tourniquet application, but the smaller bleeding and what the simplest form of applying a Band-Aid, to applying pressure, to applying arterial pressure, to applying a tourniquet itself.
all we can do is be available anytime anybody needs help.
That's right. And you never know where you're going to be. I was headed to a football game.
Everybody needs to know that it can happen anywhere, anytime, to anybody. And if you're not prepared, if you don't have people there to help you, you might not make it. Well, I know that if it wasn't for the tourniquet, I probably wouldn't be here. And I know that if this program can help even one person, it's worth it.
I think that the fear of the unknown is always the worst thing, at least for me personally. My opinion is not knowing. And when you go out and you educate somebody what these horrific injuries are and how simply they can be managed, and if you have that knowledge, you're much more apt to inject yourself into that and become the hero.
If I have a guardian angel, it's David and Ralph, They were there.
If we hadn't stopped the bleeding, if he hadn't had the extra strap, I believe that John wouldn't be talking with us today. And I didn't do anything heroic. I did something as a fellow human being. And I'm sorry I get a little emotional about this. But people have to know that doing nothing doesn't work. You got to step up if you can.